Today we're talking about when you work for a manager or supervisor who is envious of you. And I want to share 3 things that you might want to consider if you are in this situation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share if you find value here. Let's get this channel to 100,000 subscribers. I know with your support, we can reach that goal. So we're doing something new here called Comment of the Day. And if any of my videos have helped you, leave a comment. Let me know how it has helped you with your personal growth and development. If you are a member of our wellness club, the Insiders Club, the Winner's Circle for Leaders and Entrepreneurs in our channel membership, let me know how the membership has helped you. If you have any of my books or merch, which one do you have and how has it helped you? When you leave your comment, don't forget to leave your country and your state or province. You never know. You may be the highlighted comment in our next video. So today's highlighted comments, first one comes from user Soul on Fire for Truth. And they say, Cassandra has helped me understand how I was carrying around with me very heavy sandbags, worry, hurt, anger, at the way my efforts with some people were never good enough after a losing battle, always a losing battle. This video from Cassandra Mack has helped me understand why some people behave so badly. So I am working on putting down the sandbags and letting the haters and jealous people carry around their own sandbags. Excellent, Soul on Fire for Truth. I'm so glad that my videos have helped you to let go of things that we don't even need to be carrying, the worry, the anger, and that you've laid aside every weight, right? The Bible says to lay aside every weight. And sometimes those weights are internal based on the things that have happened to us. So I'm glad to hear that. Next comes from Sonia from Washington, D.C. And she says, your videos have blessed both my children and I. I've purchased plenty of your merch and will be becoming a member soon. Thank you for all that you do. You have blessed my life with knowledge and biblical life application that you provide. So Sonia, I'm really glad to hear that not only have the videos been a blessing to you, but your children. And I often say to share these messages that you feel are applicable. If you're a parent or a grandparent, share these messages with your children, age appropriate, of course, with your teenager. You will discern because you're the parent. Last but not least is Nancy Wilson 346. And she says, Cassandra Mack, your video came my way by chance today on this 20th day of December 2024. I'm proud of myself for not letting this video pass me by before getting on with my day. So I'm glad to hear that the videos come at the right time, just when you need them. So many people start their day with my videos, and it's kind of like their morning coffee for the soul. So again, thank you. And don't forget, if my videos or membership or church by phone or any of my books or merch have helped you in any way, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to leave your country along with your state and your province. So today, we're talking about when you have a supervisor or a manager who you have detected is envious of you. What are some things that you may want to consider? And so let me paint the picture. It's a typical Monday morning. You just sat down with your coffee, your tea, your lemon water, your smoothie, whatever your morning beverage is, however you start your day. If you don't start your day with a morning beverage, whatever your thing is, and you are ready to tackle the work week. In walks your supervisor or manager. They barely say good morning, give you a dirty look, and they sigh as if just your mere presence annoys them and has ruined their day. And you may be starting to feel like, wow, like I didn't even do anything. I just came in 5 minutes ago, and my boss treats me differently than the other coworkers. My boss says good morning to the other members of my team and barely says good morning to me. And so if you know that this is not in your mind, but you can actually think back to very specific things that let you know that you are dealing with envy, you want to pay attention to that. And here's the thing about envy. People often think that envy is limited to an individual who has less resources than you, right? But someone can have more resources and more influence than you and still be envious of you. Sometimes a person is envious of your level of integrity. That's a big thing that people overlook on the job. That's a big one. And so when you come to work and you mind your business, you mind the business that pays you, you don't get caught up in the office politics. You don't badmouth people and trash talk people behind their back. But you have coworkers and maybe your supervisor participates in the belittling and berating of other people, and you don't get down like that. People are going to notice your light. They're going to notice that you don't get down like they get down. And so envy of integrity, envy is a big one that is often overlooked. Oftentimes we think about envy in terms of one's aesthetic or one's material possessions. And of course, it goes without saying that envious people can envy those things. Absolutely. But what often goes undetected is someone just envying your work ethic, envying your integrity, envying the fact that you do what you do with a level of professionalism, with a level of excellence, with a level of dedication, because then they start to feel like you make them look bad, as if you personally are in their mind and in their habits, making them do what they do. So I also want to let you know that you are not alone in this experience. So I'm going to read in a moment a passage where we are going to look at how Saul, who was the king at the time, was envious of David, who worked for him, who was in his employ. And you're going to begin to see that you were not alone, and you're going to see how David handled himself. And so here are 3 things that you may want to do. Number 1, if you're getting the sense of that, you want to start with self-reflection. By starting with a bit of self-reflection, you can rule out anything you need to rule out, because you want to be sure. Oftentimes people will assume everybody hates on them or everybody is envious of them. And of course, everybody has haters. Doesn't matter who you are, how nice you are, how kind you are. You may have haters and just don't know you have haters. But people can be envious of your kindness, because when they see how kind and generous you are, it highlights how unkind and selfish they are, even though you're not judging them. You're just being your authentic self. But you got to remember that when you have the light of Christ on the inside of you, what does light do? Light shines a light in the darkness. And so if there are places and spaces in somebody's heart, mind, personality, character, where they are harboring negative energy, where they are low vibrational, vibrating at the level of hate, envy, resentment, bitterness, and you're vibrating at the level of joy and love, you're going to notice just how you can see what's going on in them in terms of the envy in them. They can see the light in you. So you want to start with a bit of self-reflection, because this is going to allow you to rule out things. So you want to rule out things like missed deadlines, right? So before we chalk it up to envy, like, have you missed deadlines? Because sometimes a supervisor or a manager is annoyed with an employee's work performance, and it has nothing to do with envy. Because as a supervisor, if I feel that I have to constantly stay on top of you, and if I have to do my job and your job, but I'm only paid for my job, and you're being paid and I'm doing your job, and you're constantly delegating up to me, at some point it is becoming a liability and a headache. And so you want to rule out these things. So you want to rule out missed deadlines. Have you missed deadlines habitually? Have you habitually missed deadlines? Maybe you have once, but if it's a habit, that's going to annoy a supervisor. Have you been perpetually late? You got to rule that out. Have you submitted poorly submitted work that is not up to par? So if you've submitted a report, let's say, and the supervisor has to constantly redo the report, go over the report, that's giving the supervisor extra work, and they are going to become annoyed. So they are not envious of you if it is what I just mentioned. This is a situation where they're feeling like this person is slowing down the team. This person doesn't have the skill set, even though they did really well during the interview. And of course, we all have a learning curve, right? None of us know everything, myself included, none of us. And we all have learning curves. When we get to a new job, it takes a while. I train for corporations, and one of the things that I talk about with the executives and HR is generally it can take an upwards of about 90 days to really get the hang of the nuances of your job. And even if you come with skills and education, you still have to learn the culture of the company. And by culture, I don't mean ethnicity. I'm talking about the values and the way things are done. And you still have to learn how your department wants things done. So you may have very strong writing skills, but there may be nuances in how your department wants things written. So there's still a learning curve, and that's understandable. But if a supervisor is constantly having to hold you by the hand every 5 minutes or referee conflicts with other staff constantly, a supervisor is going to feel that that employee is a liability. And a lot of times, if a person if a person has a mindset that they're very defensive and they're easily offended, like you have to walk on eggshells when you talk to them, that's not going to work long term at any job. And we now have a culture of people coming into the workforce where it's a culture of wanting to be held by the hand, as opposed to, here's the training, I'm going to walk you through the steps. If you have questions, you can ask me. But you can't be knocking on my door every 2 seconds throughout the whole day. You have to begin to move forward. And sometimes if a person can't grasp the skill, they're not the right fit for the job. This is hard to hear, but it's true. And so do you display professional etiquette by saying a general good morning when you come into the office? See, self-awareness is the key, because it's going to help you rule out whether or not the issue is truly that your supervisor does not like you because they're envious of you, or are they showing signs of frustration and annoyance because they're ready to get rid of you. This is key, and a lot of people will not look internally. They always look other. But we want to look internally first, because self-awareness is the key. And so you want to identify within yourself, is there anything you need to improve professionally? And only you can answer this question. I don't know you. So only you can answer this question. But generally speaking, you want to always start with self-reflection and don't default to envy all the time. Yes, there were plenty of envious people. I have a whole book on rising above the haters. We talk about envy on this channel a lot because we talk about defeating life's devils, the demon of envy. We talk about detecting deception because envy likes to hide. But we don't want to be paranoid at the same time and think everything is envy. A lot of it is. But we also want to make sure that we are distinguishing and deciphering between whether the dislike is coming from the fact that they're envious of you and you have something that poses a threat to them, or whether they feel that you're not doing your job up to par. So this is hard because you have to really take an honest look at yourself, and you got to begin to figure that out. So what you might be sensing is their annoyance and their frustration. You might be sensing that they're tired of dealing with you, but you want to be clear as to why you're sensing that. So begin to rule that out with self-reflection. If need be, get a composition notebook and write it down. 2, once you've assessed that, no, I haven't missed deadlines, I'm not late for work, I get to work on time, I haven't submitted poorly submitted reports, my reports don't come back to me because they're poorly written and I have a whole bunch of grammatical errors, and I didn't spell check my report, and I didn't follow the protocol for the report. Nope, I dotted my I's, I crossed my T's, I follow proper protocol. I say a general good morning when I come in. When I leave, I say a general goodbye. So I am displaying professionalism and proper manners in the workplace, so I can rule all of that out. I don't run to my supervisor every 5 minutes for constant validation. Yes, if I have questions or if I'm unsure how to complete a task, I will run it by my supervisor to get their feedback to make sure that I am doing the task correctly, because I want to submit my work in a professional and correct manner, so I can check off no on all of these boxes. So if you can honestly check off no missed deadlines, I'm not habitually late, I don't send in poorly submitted work, I'm meeting my deadlines, my work is up to par, I am not in my supervisor's office complaining about something every 5 minutes, because that is a headache and nobody likes working with somebody like that. And a lot of times they won't say this to you, but they will look for a way to begin to get rid of you. And because in my training, the training portion of the work I do when I train for companies, one of the things that my company does, Strategies for Empowered Living, is we provide professional development workshops for organizations. And so I am getting to meet with executive level staff. I'm getting to meet with the executive directors, the CEOs, the HR departments, and finding out the inner workings of what's happening. And so oftentimes they won't say these things to you. So once you've ruled that out and you're like, nope, it's none of that. My supervisor from day one, I came in looking cute and it was a problem. From day one, the clients really love me and they gravitate towards me. And because they don't really like my supervisor like that, he or she is hating on me. The higher ups respect my work and my supervisor is threatened because I'm going to take their job. See, that's envy. So we can say, okay, that's envy. So get your pen and your paper. Or if you have one of my journals, one of my blank journals, work it out in my journal. And let's rule out what we need to rule out. Because once you can rule it out, you are moving forward with clarity. And I want to make sure you're moving forward with clarity so you can be very clear in your assessment. You're making a strategic assessment. And a strategic assessment means you have to evaluate all of the options, not just one or two. So you're putting everything on the table. You're crossing off what needs to be crossed off. And then you can say, nope. After I've went through all of this, none of these things are issues. My evaluations don't reflect that I'm late, that I've missed deadlines. Nope, nope, nope. It's personal. So once you know that, number two, you want to assess the lay of the land. You have to assess the lay of the land. Anytime, which means to read the room. Anytime you are going into a new situation, and I'm talking about the workplace in this video, but this is anything. It could be you joined a committee. You are a parent who just joined the PTA and it's real political on the PTA. Oh, it gets political in the PTA. Yes, it does. I was on my son's PTA many, many, many years ago when he was in elementary school. And so you want to assess the lay of the land, right? So if you suspect that it's personal, because we done did our self-assessment and we ruled out everything we talked about, now you need to know what you're fully dealing with. Because now that you've discerned, nope, Cassandra, it's envy. I'm 100% sure. So now that you know that, you have to know what you are up against. You cannot walk in coal. And I'm going to give you a scripture as to why you cannot walk in coal, right? So Jesus is talking to his disciples in this scripture. And he says to them in Matthew 10:16, that's the scripture. He says, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. And then he gives them the advice. Therefore, be as wise as serpents and as harmless as a dove. So first he's letting his disciples know, listen, I'm sending you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Sheep within this context means that you're following the teachings of the Master Shepherd Christ, right? So you're a sheep, we're sheep in that context, not blind sheep, right? Sheep that are clearly following the teachings of Christ because we've decided to become believers. We've decided to make that step of making Jesus Christ the Lord and Savior of our lives. That's the audience I'm talking to. And so if this does not fit for you, if Bible scripture does not fit for you, then you may want to exit this channel because you won't find it helpful. So it says, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. And so Jesus is letting his disciples know that you're going to be in the midst of wolves. They're not going to be across the street on the other side of the continent. No, 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 no. They're going to be in the midst. They're going to be in the middle of your family, in the middle of the supermarket, in the middle of every place you go, the middle of your community, the middle of your job. They're going to be sitting right next to you. You'll be in the midst of wolves. They're not far away. And so you got to be prepared because you're going into hostile terrain. You are going into an environment. When you are in an environment that is a hostile terrain, a predatory environment where predators are on the loose, there are all type of animals that will kill you without a second thought. And so he's letting his disciples know in a figurative sense that you were going to be in the midst of people with predatory. A wolf is a predatory spirit. A wolf is someone who will rip you to shreds without a second thought. A wolf is someone who will rip you to shreds, who will eat you alive. And wolves run in packs. And so a lot of times when you have a hater, they will try to rally up the troops to get other people to hate on you so that they can isolate you and make you feel like you're all alone. And so he's letting them know, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. You can't be naive about this. When you follow Christ and the light of Christ is on the inside of you, you are a child of the light. And then he gives them the advice. Because you're going to encounter wolves in this world. There's both good and evil in this world. Everybody ain't like you. Everybody's not like you. Everybody ain't your friend on the job. Everybody don't move with integrity and decency. Everybody's not like you. And so behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. And here's the advice. Be as wise as a serpent. You got to be wise. That's serpentine wisdom. Some variations of that scripture use the word shrewd instead of wise. And so we know that this is a shrewd type of wisdom. This is a shrewd type of wisdom. Meaning you don't wear your heart on your sleeve. You don't overshare. This is a shrewd type of wisdom. So he's saying, be as wise as serpents and as harmless as a dove. So when you're as harmless as a dove, it's like, I'm not here to harm nobody. I'm not coming with ill intent. I'm not a predator. Doves are not predators. But don't get it twisted. Doves are not predators, but doves still have claws and beaks. And if you disturb their nests and try to harm their young, they have claws and beaks. They're not predators. They ain't trying to hurt nobody. But they got to protect what's theirs. So being harmless as a dove does not mean being a doormat. I don't know where people get that from. So he's given them the secret sauce. That's what y'all got to do. And so you got to assess the lay of the land. And to do that, you have to be as wise as a serpent and as harmless as a dove. And so assessing the lay of the land as it pertains to the workplace, I'm going to share two things that it includes. Number one, you want to read that company manual. Most people don't read the manual. When I see people making TikToks and they have paraphernalia from their job, they might have the logo, they forgot to take off the hat, and they work for FedEx or UPS, they forgot to take off their hat, or they have a mug from the company sitting on the desk and they forgot that the mug was there, or they're in the break room and then they find out they get fired and they don't understand why they didn't read the company manual. And so the company manual usually will spell out all of the policies and protocols. And it's your responsibility to read the manual. But most people don't read the manual. I'm not saying all, so don't take it personal. But a lot of people do not read the manual because it's thick. It's a lot. And most companies are counting on you not reading that manual. That's why you got to be wise as this. They're counting on you not reading that manual. That's why you got to read the manual. Baby, I go to a job, I read the manual with highlighters, different color highlighters. I'm going to tell you, according to paragraph 2, verse 3, this is the proper protocol. You ain't going to catch me slipping and sleeping on the job. And so you got to read the company manual to know what the written policies and protocols are. You must assess the lay of the land. Why is this important? Because if you are dealing with an envious supervisor who is looking for a reason to write you up, who is looking for a reason to create a performance improvement plan that goes in your folder, your file, who's looking for a reason to get rid of you and create a paper trail, you need to know what the policy says, because they're going to refer to that. You best believe they're going to refer to that policy. I'll never forget working at, I was doing training, not an employee, but working as a consultant. And it was a manager who could not stand one of her employees. And I was a little taken aback when she said to me, I can't wait to fire her. Like she was excited about firing this person. I can't wait to fire her. And she says this to me after the training. So I'm doing a training for managers, and she says, I can't wait to fire. And she's telling me the scenario. And it's important to understand that people are people first. And there are people with that mindset, and you might not know that. And they might be smiling in your face. And so don't give people, particularly your supervisor, if you already know that he or she is envious, don't give them the ammunition. Don't give them the bullets for the gun. Read the company manual, know what the written policies and protocols are, and it's not about how you feel about the manual. It's about what the manual says. So you have to know, what are the grounds for being terminated? What are the grounds for being written up? Because that's the first thing that HR is going to tell a manager to do, to start creating a paper trail. And the paper trail is going to be based on the company manual so that you don't have wiggle room to come back and sue them. And so you have to make sure that you're doing your due diligence. You have to be as wise as a serpent. You got to be as wise as a serpent. If you got an issue with lateness, you got to stop being late. Because they're going to use that as a reason to fire you. If the supervisor is already looking for a reason. This is what we're talking about in this video. So you gotta read that company manual. In addition to that, you got to know how to read the room. You have to know how to read the room and know the dynamics that are at play on your job. So what are the dynamics that are at play within your organization, in your company? And this varies from department to department. So you have to know the dynamics at play in your specific department and within the larger organization. And that comes through observation, through reading the room. Who's friends with who? Who goes out to lunch with who? You need to be observing that, because you may be talking to a coworker who you think is your good friend. You calling this person your bestie, and they are feeding the supervisor everything you're saying. And this is the supervisor that is envious of you. And they had the coworker warm up to you and befriend you to get information. People play dirty. And if you are naive, you're going to get got. People play dirty. And so if you're dealing with a wolf is not a deer. A wolf is not a gazelle. Not only will a wolf eat you alive, but wolves run in packs. And so you're going to have to read the room. You're going to have to know the dynamics. And that's going to come through observation. And stop thinking everybody's your friend who you work with. Be mindful of giving your opinion about certain things, because they will use that to come back. So just be mindful. Be mindful. So you want to assess the lay of the land. That's number 2. And then here's the third thing. You got to plan your next steps. So first, what did you do? Let's go through. Let's do a quick review. Number 1, you did a self-assessment to rule out anything that you might be doing that will be impeding on your job performance and impeding on the relationship with your supervisor and manager, like missed deadlines, lateness, and making your supervisor have to kind of cater to you and hold your hand every 5 seconds, as opposed to learning, taking the initiative, and closing the gaps. And so once you ruled that out, and you're like, no, I'm dealing with envy, I've ruled it all out. Then you got to assess the lay of the land. You got to know what you're dealing with, because where there's envy and self-seeking, according to James chapter 3, verse 16, there's confusion in every evil work. And so once you've assessed you're dealing with envy, you have to know that where there's envy and self-seeking, there's confusion and every evil work. Every evil work. Backbiting is evil work. Backstabbing is evil work. Having someone pretend to be your friend to get information out of you, that's evil. And so you can't put these kind of things past somebody that you know is envious of you. You can't. So you want to plan your next steps. That's tip number 3. And then I'm going to take you to the story with David and Saul. So what are your next steps? Are you going to stay and deal with the office politics and your supervisor's behavior as best as you can? No one else can think for you and choose for you, so it's your life. Will you request to meet with your supervisor one-on-one to proactively discuss your performance? Remember, this is not a confrontation, but a clarification conversation. So if you get the sense that your supervisor is envious of you and there are very specific things that you can point to, specific behaviors, not a feeling, but you're noticing that there's a difference between how your supervisor treats you and how your supervisor treats your colleagues, and you can pinpoint specific, observable, noticeable behaviors, not feelings, then do you want to have a proactive discussion about this? Now, I'm always going to give you the both sides of it. So you have choices available, and every choice comes with consequences, because life is not consequence free. That's just not how real life works. And people are looking for, most people oftentimes are looking for the perfect solution. There is no perfect solution. That's not real life. There's going to be consequences. There are pros and cons. And so if your supervisor is not self-aware, or remember, envy also produces feelings of shame. So most of the time, a person is not going to want to admit they're envious, right? So you saying, I think you're envious to your supervisor is probably not going to get you the results you want. So you may want to address it broadly and just focus on the dynamic between the two of you. So you want to remember that this is not a confrontation, but it's just a clarifying conversation. So you might want to say, something along the lines of, I just want to get a sense of how I'm doing on the job before the annual performance appraisal. And when you have some time, I wanted to have a conversation with you about it. Here's the positive that's going to come out of that. You're going to have information. So if the supervisor rolls her eyes or his eyes and they're dismissive towards you, and they're like, well, you just going to have to wait till the annual review, and they're nasty about it, then you know what you're dealing with. You always want to know what you're dealing with. Envy, when it's directed at you, is also spiritual warfare. And when you are in a battle, you can't just know yourself. You also got to know your enemy. You got to know your enemy. So by your supervisor's reaction, you will have a clearer sense of what you're really dealing with. So you might have suspected your supervisor doesn't like you, but after requesting to meet with them, and you will phrase it along the lines of just to get a sense of how you're doing on the job, their reaction to that is going to let you know and give you more information as to what it is you're dealing with. 3, and this is part of 3, so I could call it A, B, and C. So we went to A, B, where you go to HR. Some people choose that. But I will tell you, as a consultant who consults at the executive level, HR is not your friend. And a lot of people are very naive about that. And so it is your right to go to HR. This is your right. So nobody's saying it's not your right, but just be wise. If you go to HR, be wise, be prayerful. Be wise, be prayerful. I'm always going to tell you be prayerful, because I'm not in your head. I'm not dealing with your specific dynamics and your specific situation. I'm not the one dealing with the bills that you have, that your job pays for gives you the income for your bills. So I don't have to live out the consequences to your choices. And I'm never going to think for you, because I can't think for another human being or choose for another human being. But what I am going to do is provide you with a variety of considerations for you to reflect on as you make the choice that you believe is best for you, since no one else can choose your choices for you. So just know that when you go to HR, that you May or may not. It can go either way. You have to be prepared for this so that you are not blindsided, right? So you may decide to go to HR with your paper trail. That is an option. Just know just know it can go either way. Or will you update your resume and look for another job? So those are your options. It really comes to that. Will you update your resume and look for another job? Or you can stay and deal with the office politics. You can be prayerful. You can ask God to strengthen you. You can pray for your supervisor. I mean, these are all different options that are at your disposal, but only you in the final analysis can make the final decision, whatever you decide to do. So you want to carefully plan your next steps. That's going to be the third thing. Once you have done the self-awareness work to rule out that it's not you, and you have pinpointed that, yeah, I am dealing with the spirit of envy, where there's envy and self-seeking, selfish ambition. There's confusion in every evil work, and there's a lot of evil work coming from my supervisor. There's confusion. We have situations where supervisor tries to turn the team against one of the own team members. This is horrible. This is horrible. All supervisors don't supervise well. You have some supervisors that have power struggles. They're on a power trip. You have supervisors with out of control egos. They got to be the shiniest object in the room. You have some supervisors who are very insecure. And anytime somebody comes up with a good idea that's not the supervisor's idea, they get upset, or they want to take the idea and pass it off as their own, and you worked hard, and then they want to call that teamwork. And you're like, how that teamwork? I'm the one that wrote the whole thing. You just put your name on it. This ain't teamwork. And you gave me no credit. You didn't even say bad enough you put your name on it. But you didn't even say, she was the one that came up with the idea. So do know that this exists. And oftentimes when people are entering the job market for the first time, I find, particularly, and this happened with my son, particularly very young workers, is that they're not prepared. So you're prepared in terms of, school prepares you in terms of how to ace the interview, how to write a resume, but not really prepared for the human behavioral dynamics that happen at the job, knowing that people are people wherever they go. So this is important. This is important. And it's interesting because my son was telling me a story about on his job how one of the staff, one of his coworkers, maybe came from lunch literally 2 minutes late. And the other coworker, 2 minutes. And the other coworker ran back and told the supervisor to get him in trouble. And I'm not saying that he should come back from lunch late. So I'm not saying that, but anything could happen. It's 2 minutes. If it's not a habit, where's the grace? And you may be in a situation where you're online waiting for food. It takes longer than you anticipate, and you come back a minute or two late. You may want, your colleague to show you grace. I'm not advocating for lateness, but what I'm saying is, this coworker was smiling in the coworker's face as if they were best friends, but feeding the supervisor every little thing they did, but was like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Let's go eat. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. So he still had snakish ways. And so I said to my son, so what does that tell you about this coworker? That you can't trust him. I said, so you be mindful and you keep the conversation light. You keep the conversation light. Do not talk about politics. Do not talk about your personal views about certain things. Do not badmouth your supervisor. And he already knows this, but, I just reiterate it. Talk about your favorite food, the music you like. You're going to keep it light. And don't feel obligated to answer their question because they're pressing you for your personal business. Let them handle it. Even if it means you'll have one or two people that don't like you, so what? So what? Get used to it. It'll give you a thicker skin. And so I say this to say that there are all kind of dynamics that people are not prepared for. And my son was a little taken aback by the coworker's behavior. He was like, Ma, like he daps him up and everything. And he invite him to places and he invite him to go here. And he was selling him out like that. That's messed up. And I was like, well, it teaches you human behavior. So now you know what you're dealing with. Keep it polite. Keep it civil. But never get personal. Keep it polite. Keep it civil. But never get personal with that individual or anybody at that job. Make your money and go home. So I want to take you to 1 Samuel chapter 18, where you begin to see Saul resenting David. I'm in 1 Samuel. I'm in chapter 18, and we're going to begin at verse 5. So David went out wherever Saul sent him and behaved wisely. And Saul sent him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all the people and also in the sight of Saul's servant. Now it had happened as they were coming home, when David was returning from the slaughter of the Philistines, that the women had come out of all of the cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines, with joy, and with musical instruments. So the women sang as they danced and said, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. Then Saul was very angry, and the saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed to David 10,000, and to me they have ascribed only thousands. Now what more can he have but the kingdom? This is the sentence. So Saul eyed David from that day forward. I read you chapter 18, verses 5 through 9. Pay attention to that sentence. Now, what more can he have but the kingdom? So look at Saul's mindset. Now, here's the thing. David went out wherever Saul sent him. So this means technically Saul's the king, right? Saul's the king. David's in his employment. So technically Saul is David's boss. And he went wherever Saul sent him. That meant that he did his job. Whatever task Saul gave him, he did it, and he behaved wisely. So he did it well, with wisdom. He did it well. People can be envious of how effective you are, your effectiveness. And David was a mighty warrior. Not only was he a mighty warrior, but the people loved him. It says he was accepted in the sight of all people. And not only that, in the sight of Saul's servants. So even the people who served Saul had love for David. And so sometimes your supervisor will envy you because of the respect and the respect and the care that your clients, your customers have for you. And he doesn't have that type of rapport with the customers and the clients, or she doesn't have that type of rapport. And then the women came out from the cities and they gave King Saul his props, but they gave David more props because David was even more effective. And so you may be with a supervisor where the people are like, hey, the people at the job may compliment your supervisor, but maybe your compliment is even more because of the degree of effectiveness and productivity and excellence and integrity in which you do what you do. And your supervisor can't match that, and it bothers them. And so look what David says. What more does he want? What more can he have with the kingdom? So he feels threatened. And so sometimes you will have a supervisor who looks at the job as their kingdom. And they feel like, what more does this person want? They're going to take my job? They're going to take my job? I'll never forget when I had a supervisor, my supervisor, who said to me, this was many years ago, you could do my job. And this was in the interview where she was reluctant to hire me because she felt like I could do her job just based on what was on my resume. And I was humble. I needed the job. And I was like, oh, no, oh, no, oh, no. And she hired me. And it became a problematic relationship when her boss began to ask me for my feedback with certain things, and we had a problem. So do know that that can happen. So I don't want you to be naive about that. And so you have 3 steps. Self-assess, number 1. Increase your self-awareness, self-assess. Make sure you have ruled everything out. Start with self-reflection. 2, assess the lay of the land. 3, plan your next steps, whatever they may be. So we see that David behaved himself wisely, but it still didn't remove Saul's envy of him. So know that you could do everything right. This is how you know it's envy, when you do your self-assessment, and it ain't you. When you know that you haven't been late, you haven't submitted crappy reports, If that's part of your job, whatever, your job may be working in a plant. So whatever your job is, you do your job effective to the highest degree of productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness. And they have a problem with you personally. You're not a nasty person. You come in and you say a general good morning because you need to be hospitable on the job. That's just basic decency and basic manners, home training. So that's a general good morning, a general goodbye. You're not on the phone during company time. You're not on social media during company time. As long as you're following policy, protocol, procedure, and they're coming at you personally, you know what it is. So this is where you're going to have to assess the lay of the land. Read that company manual back and forth. Get yourself some colored highlighters to highlight what you need to highlight. Read the room organizationally and within your department to know the dynamics at play among the different people in your job. And then 3, plan your next steps. Plan your next steps. So whatever those next steps are, if you sense they're looking for a reason to let you go, update your resume and start going on interviews. And don't tell your coworkers that. So you have to plan your next steps. You know what's going on, and you're going to have to plan for that. And so hopefully that story with Saul let you know that you are not alone in this experience. And so I hope you found this helpful. And if you need more guidance in this area, you can always feel free to book a one-on-one session. You can also join the Wednesday Wellness Club. So the Wednesday Wellness Club is a therapeutic group that meets the first and third Wednesday of every month. We focus on self-care, mental self-care. That's caring for your mind, mental well-being, emotional wellness, and healing, all through a biblical lens. And you will hear me say time and time again, it is much, much, much cheaper than therapy. Therapy can be in upwards of $250 just for one session. The Wellness Club is a therapeutic group. It is not therapy, but it is a therapeutic group coupled with group coaching. So it's not individual. It's not me spending time with you one-on-one. It is group coaching through the homework assignments that I give you, and then the answering of those questions. When you go do the homework assignment, come back and answer those questions, then you are putting into practice the teaching and the techniques that we're talking about in our Wellness Club. We also have a tier for those of you who are entrepreneurs or you're executives, and that's the Winner's Circle. And in the Winner's Circle, we meet by Zoom, and that's specifically geared for leaders and entrepreneurs at the executive level, leaders at the executive level and entrepreneurs. And so if you're interested in learning more, simply click on the join button in this video, or you can click on the link in the video description box. It's going to take you to channel membership. When you get to channel membership, you'll see that there are different tiers of membership. Make sure to join at the correct tier. So if you want the Wednesday Wellness Club, you got to join at the Wellness Club tier. If you want access to our leaders and entrepreneurial monthly Zoom meetings, then you need to join at the Winner's Circle tier. So make sure you join at the right tier. Once you become a member, the way that you access your membership perks, you will go to the community tab. So make sure that you enable your notifications so that every time I post, you get the notifications. If for some reason YouTube is not sending you the notifications, then on your own, go to my channel, go to the community tab, and check it daily. And you will see the postings. And the postings will be in the membership area of your tier for your specific perks that come with your tier. And so with that being said, you may also want to pick up my book, Master Your Mind, Mood, and Attitude in the Workplace. That is a book to help you put techniques into practice that really help you master your mind, first thing before you even get to the job. So that's that. And if you dealing with haters, rise above the haters. All of my books are available at Amazon. Some are available at Barnes & Noble, some at Walmart, some at Target, but Amazon is going to be your best bet. And again, if you're dealing with haters, pick up the journal, Rise Above the Haters. That will definitely bless your life. I also want to let you know that on New Year's Eve, Tuesday, December 24th, we are having a special worship by phone service on December 24th, which is a Tuesday, same number we use for our Sunday service. And that's going to happen at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, but 12 p.m., 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. So it is a Christmas Eve afternoon and morning, because for some of you it'll be morning, worship by phone service. So you're welcome to worship by phone, get refueled before you start your festivities, and worship and fellowship with us if you choose to do so. So with that being said, have an amazing day. Take care of yourselves. Let's do our best to be kind. But at the same token, let's take our discernment and our common sense with us. Let's keep the comment section positive. You already know that my comment section, I don't know about no other YouTuber, but Cassandra Mack's comment section is not the Wild Wild West, because we are building community here. So if you come here with triggers and craziness, do know that my team will delete the comment and will block you, because we're building community. So either you come because you want to be part of our community, or you can exit and bring your negativity someplace else for those who want to be negative. So with that being said, God bless. Take care. No matter who you are, you will have haters. John 15 verse 18 says, if the world hates you, know that it hated Jesus first. So if you have haters, know that God is greater than your haters. Lately you've been feeling the weight of your haters coming at you with their envy and their hate, scheming against you, throwing mud on your name. But God's gonna work it out despite their lies and game. God is greater, so much greater than your haters. God is greater, don't give up, it'll pay off later. God is greater, through the pain you're a giant slayer. Let the haters hate while you elevate. Pay no mind to the critics, be about your goals. Keep rising, keep shining. Your haters can't stop no show. They can hate all they want to. Remember you are blessed. Never let a hater see you sweat, 'cause this is just a test. God is greater, so much greater than your haters. God is greater, don't give up, it'll pay off later. God is greater, through the pain you're a giant slayer. Let the haters hate while you elevate. Don't let the negativity poison your mind. Run your race with grace, one day at a time. They can laugh and they can mock you, but you won't disappear. When people don't receive you, shake the dust off your feet. God is greater, so much greater than your haters.